All right, let's jump right into a story about making software better. By first, and you're going to love this, making it completely and utterly broken. We're looking at a real-life example from the world of agricultural tech to understand something called refactoring. It's really just a fancy term for cleaning up and simplifying code without actually changing what you see on the screen.
You know, it's a question every single developer has to deal with. When a system gets too tangled, too complicated, how do you even begin to fix it? And you'd think, right, that the answer would be to make these tiny, careful, delicate changes. But, well, sometimes the best answer is the one you'd never expect.
And that's really the heart of this whole thing. This idea that true, meaningful simplification, it doesn't come from just patching over problems. It comes from ripping out the old, messy foundation to make room for something that's stronger, cleaner, and just plain easier to understand.
So our story kicks off with this massive challenge, untangling a super complex system. This is all about an upgrade that, well, had to take a few major detours before it got to the finish line.
So here's the problem. The old system over there on the left, it was basically like an old-timey telephone switchboard. For any two parts of the software to talk to each other, the signal had to go through this clunky central hub. The goal, what you see on the right, is to get to a modern direct dial system. No middleman, no confusion, just a clean, direct line.
And the villain in our story, that messy switchboard, it has a name. The mapping layer. This thing is a total black box right in the middle of the code. It makes fixing bugs or adding new features an absolute nightmare. So to make things better, it just has to go. Period.
Which brings us to the most dramatic part of the process, breaking it to fix it. And trust me, this part requires a serious leap of faith. Okay, so how do you even start something this huge? Do you draw up a detailed plan? Do you carefully untangle one little wire at a time? Nope. The answer is way more direct and, honestly, kind of terrifying.
That's it. That's the move. No hesitation. The first step isn't building something new. It's just getting rid of the old. The developer literally highlights that entire mapping layer and hits delete. He just rips out the whole switchboard in one go.
And the immediate result? Absolute, total chaos. With that mapping layer gone, boom, over 100 errors pop up instantly. Every connection is broken. The whole system is completely dead in the water. But here's the wild part. The developer doesn't even flinch. He knew this was going to happen. This huge wave of errors isn't a disaster. It's the to-do list. See, each error now points to a connection that he has to go in and rewire directly. The chaos is actually the very first step toward clarity. And now for the main event, the great rewiring. Using that giant list of errors as a guide, it's time to start rebuilding, one single connection at a time.
So to make this whole thing feel a bit more concrete, he starts with something small and manageable. The very first error on that long to-do list, a simple working light component.
The process is super methodical. First, he looks back at the old, deleted files to see where the signal used to come from. Then he creates a brand new direct input right on the component itself. After that, he reroutes the signal and sets it up for specific things, like a button press. Okay, one error down. About 100 more to go.
And I love this part. A little moment of humanity in this super technical process. Instead of clicking through the visual menus for every single little change, the developer decides to save some time and just edits the code file directly. It's a classic expert shortcut, you know? Knowing the system so well, you know which rules you can bend to go faster.
All right, so the working light was just the warm-up. Now it's time to tackle a much, much bigger challenge, the section control module. This thing is a core part of the system, and it has dozens and dozens of connections that are all broken. And this, right here, this is the real grind. It's tedious, careful work that takes a ton of focus. We're talking manually copying settings for 18 different sections, transferring old addresses to new inputs, and just double, triple checking dozens of connections. It's not glamorous, but it is absolutely critical.
So after all of that painstaking work, we finally get to see the transformation. We go from total chaos to crystal clarity. This is the payoff. The very last step in the whole process is the cleanup. With all the shiny new connections working perfectly, it's time to get rid of the last traces of the old, messy way of doing things. And this is just so satisfying to see. One by one, the developer just deletes the now empty files and folders that used to be that complicated mapping layer. Each little deletion is like a final confirmation that the old, complex system is gone for good. So what's the result of all this work? This simple chart really says it all. The project's complexity, which was way up here before, is now significantly lower. The code is just easier to read, easier to fix, and way easier for new developers to understand. And this is the victory lap. That huge list of over 100 errors? Gone. That complicated mapping layer? Totally gone. All that's left is a clean, working system with direct, logical connections. The chaos has been turned into beautiful, beautiful simplicity. Which really brings us to the final big question. Why does this struggle even matter? After all that pain, you have to ask, why? The person using the software won't even see a difference. So what was the developer's true goal? And the developer just says it perfectly himself. He says the process was no fun, but he did it to make things much, much simpler for all the newcomers. Think about that. He took on this incredibly difficult task, not for himself, but to make life easier for the next person who has to work on this project. It's this quiet, amazing act of professional generosity. And that leaves us with a final thought to chew on. We use technology all day, every day. And when it works smoothly, when it's simple and intuitive, it's often because someone, somewhere, went through a painful process just like this one. A difficult, unseen effort to tear down something complicated and build something better in its place. Kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it?